Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to MTG Arena. Today is Wednesday, November 27th, the day before American Thanksgiving. We're testing out this aggro deck and playing it. I guess we could start trying it on ranked. We're at gold tier 4, so it's not really going to lose us anything. And I believe this season ends in 3 days anyway, so yeah, there's only up to go. So let's try some standard rank with this aggro deck and see if we've tweaked it enough that it'll win often enough. I think you need a 50% or higher win ratio to move up in the ranks, because you get like 2 pips every time you win, and you lose 1 pip every time you lose, and if you get 4 pips, it seems like you move up in a tier, and once you've locked in that next tier, I think you maybe are given some extra accommodation, or perhaps you can't fall down a tier at all. These are speculations, 2 things I should know, and the game should have explained a little bit better, but it didn't. So there's a lot of stuff here, a lot of work, and a lot of little polishes you could throw into a game like this to explain things directly, instead of potentially making me have to look it up on some website somewhere and trust some third party. Moving on, we are looking at games on Steam. So we have a game that came out called Art Former the Game, which looks to me like it is a combination of an RPG game and something else. Maybe an action game? It kind of feels like it's all over the place. Like, all these screenshots don't really connect well. And it seems like what you're doing is you're playing pieces of art throughout ancient times. So this might be a indie game in development that's worth following, or it might just be a low effort game. They want $15 right now, and it's English, German, and Czech, which is suspect to say the least. Well, Czech is a little suspect. So I'll put it on the follow list, and we'll see if Art Former the Game ever gets enough reviews. Meanwhile, we're having network trouble. This stupid backup that I'm running, I think, is taking up all of my bandwidth, and if that's not the problem, then it's just, I have to assume Magic's servers suck compared to everybody else, compared to Hearthstone's servers. And yeah, could always use more bandwidth. That certainly would be helpful, but that has more to do with availability near me than it does even paying for more. Let's see. And it does seem like when you try to play ranked, it takes longer to find a match game than if you're just trying to play regular. Which perhaps they need a way to adjust for that. I don't really see a reason why they wouldn't queue you perhaps already into ranked. I've never seen a game do this, but if it said, hey, actually we found a ranked game instead, would you click here to play ranked instead? Or just have a separate queue where it's like, I don't care if I play regular ranked or not, I just want to play this deck. The only big difference between picking a deck and playing ranked and picking a deck and playing non-ranked is just, did you prepare? But I imagine there would be a large amount of people that wouldn't care if if it meant getting into the game faster. And yeah, I would be very happy right now to either jump into a regular game or a ranked game and not spend 4 to 5 minutes waiting for it to try to find something and not really find it. And I'm being distracted, so this would be incredibly irritating for people who don't have dual screens, who can't do something else, and who aren't looking at news sites or the web browser for something else. So we'll leave that for a couple more minutes. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Get a job. Weaver's hiring an environment artist in Venice, California. Okay. Let's see. Next, we have an article from Gamatsu. Facebook has acquired the Beat Saber developer Beat Games. Beat Games to continue to operate as an independent studio. So, Facebook, who owns Oculus, now also owns Beat Games. They're trying their best, I think, to pad their bottom line as on VR, so that they don't have to report to any shareholders. Is Facebook even a public company? I don't know. But that would be my guess, is that they don't want to report in their revenue reports that shows that Oculus and VR has been a huge failure, even though it totally has. Yep, and it seems like that's not going to work. So third time's the charm, I hope. Otherwise I'm going to jump back away from trying to play ranked, and we'll just go back to playing the regular things. Like, at a certain point, I basically need some B shots, some B coverage, B footage to play as I'm queuing for the next game. I'm not used to streaming and playing a game where you have to sit in the queue and wait forever. And I have no idea what my B footage would be. Like, I could certainly bring up footage of some other video on my channel, but then I don't know how helpful that would be, or whether that would be good cross promotion or not. So I was talking about how the Roblox videos on YouTube were always filling up the trending tab for gaming. Gamma Sutra has an article here. An analyst says Roblox revenue on mobile alone surpassed $1 billion. Roblox apparently hugely successful by the looks of it. And it seems like that's the case. It seems to catch some level of children. Somewhere between the 8-year-olds and the 13-year-olds would be my guess. And people seem to really like it. Although I don't know why people would like Roblox. But if I think back, there was the Pokemon Digimon argument all the time, when I think in retrospect most people can clearly say that Pokemon was the one that you should have picked because it was the one that was going to obviously be more successful. Bandai Namco versus the power of Nintendo. I believe Digimon is Bandai Namco. They had no chance at success there. So yeah, knockoffs are kind of a thing amongst kids' products, and they do have a tendency to potentially succeed even when they really don't deserve, because kids are not very discerning and they just walk into whatever the first thing that they see. I should have played this first, actually. Boy, I wish I could undo sometimes. Had I played this, I would have had enough to play that. Well, actually, I don't think I would have. Put this on the field. What does this do? This just gives him more land, so he can cast more spells. So his land strategy may come in conflict with my aggro strategy. Just keep playing things. Come on, let it play. Meanwhile, we have an article here from TechRaptor. Dungeons and Dragons 5e adds psionics. I assume 5e is the 5th edition. Yeah. So not really video game related, but the idea that Dungeons and Dragons is expanding may certainly influence a few game developers who specifically are influenced by Dungeons and Dragons. So what can we do to get rid of this? Well, if I played this, would I have enough to play this? No. So if I put this on the field, I think what I need is more mana than is realistic, because I'd need 2 here, so damage cannot be prevented this turn, and do 2 damage to any character. Right, that's any target, yeah. And then I would need 6, and so yeah, I'm just short. And I kind of need this to go aggro to attack this. Meanwhile, this guy's going to do damage to everybody, apparently. Let's see. So every time spells cast, this does damage. So I probably played out of order there, and should have played this. Right. This may be his only strategy though, so if I defeat this, maybe I'm fine. It seems unlikely, having really nothing else that I can do, but maybe. Oh, is this guy gonna pass this turn or what? Well, whatever. We have a game here on Steam called Rom Guns, which looks like it's just a low effort shooter platformer game. $1.19 discounted, English only, 12 achievements. Yep. Got nothing else to say about that. Not gonna make it to the fall list, obviously. This is just gonna keep on going. He's just gonna keep on casting spells in the hopes that he can do 13 casts. And at the end of his turn, all of his mana untaps, which means he theoretically might have actually been able to pull something off. So I've just got to kill this. and he just have to hope he doesn't have a counter of anything. As long as he doesn't have a counter, this kills that, and then that opens a small doorway to have victory. It's going to be asking quite a bit. I've got to do 16 damage while he's got to do 6. Next we have a game on Steam here called Battle Dome Redux, which looks like a low polygon ugly game that is in VR. Like, the graphics here in no way would work in VR. That looks horrible for VR. $9.99, multiplayer only, English only. Yep. Terrible game. Yeah, it's crazy that they are trying to have a VR game of the year come out in 2019 when there literally was no VR game at all that happened that was worthy of that description. Yeah, I probably have lost here. Unless I can get him to run out of cards, which is unlikely. Yeah, and that wasn't enough damage. So yeah, he just has to attack. Or you can just keep playing the same strategy and it'll just auto pass because there's nothing I can do. So far, aggro is not ready for ranked play, but we were kind of running into that scenario where this aggro deck doesn't really have any kind of mid-game or late-game strategy, and probably never could or would. That if you're going to play aggro, you kind of have to play aggro the whole time. I think there is an argument to be made that I probably should make my decks as kind of more of a well-rounded thing that would allow me to change my gameplay style and still have a decent win ratio. I don't know if you can really do that and succeed or not. Anyways, next we have a game on Steam called Protect Your Fool, which seems like it's a black and white game where you just click on things that are trying to attack this character on the left. Seems like it's just kind of a poorly thought out idea of a game. $2.99, English and Portuguese Brazil. There might be a game here, a concept where you have a character that is just going to constantly run, and then you have a shooting gallery style game where you're trying to protect that character. Although I don't know how that's much different than most shooting gallery style games where you're having to shoot at anything anyways, otherwise you take damage. And the side-scrolling aspect here in the art, I don't think is probably the right angle. It would be much nicer if it was first person or third person looking forward at 3D objects instead of a 2D flat shooting mechanic. Let's see. Yeah, this game does not look interesting enough to me though to really make it to the fall list, because it's lazy and it's black and white being black and white, and because it's random in general. And yeah, I'm only willing to give it 2 minutes. So if it hasn't found a match in 2 minutes, I'm just gonna exit out and relaunch it. And while it's relaunching, we can go to this TechRaptor article. Battleborn is dead, is shutting down its single and multiplayer in January of 2021. So you have a full year, I guess, to get the last bit of your enjoyment out of it. But there were people in particular that were very much screwed with Battleborn, because that launched as like a full $60 game, and then within 6 to 8 months turned into the free-to-play game it should have been. And now anybody who's paid anything into it whatsoever is getting screwed again, because there's just going to be absolutely zero content you can play on that in total. And it goes to show that Gearbox was definitely not a company to be trusted with your business, and it's may still very well be the case. The good news on things like Borderlands is that the single player on Borderlands will always work. I don't think there's any way that they could get away with, or would want to get away with, shutting down access to even Borderlands 1 or like the pre-sequel. Man, I'm gonna have to actually toss something because I'm so short on mana. So what do we want to toss? Just toss that, I guess. But yeah, it's a shame. I feel like Battleborn could have been something, but it was a competitor to Overwatch, and it's not like Overwatch really is even that hot anymore. And in all fairness to Gearbox, they released Battleborn a week before Overwatch came out, so unless they had heard some news that Overwatch was in development and were trying to release it earlier. And there's a lot of suspicion that Battleborn was always just testing gameplay mechanics and programming for using the Unreal Engine and creating Borderlands 3. So Gearbox may have gotten what they wanted out of it while screwing over the paying audience, which is no way to do business, but it's not anything I wouldn't expect from Randy Pitchford either. So yeah, Battleborn is dead. I think the 2K boycott and a moderate boycott on Gearbox is still due. Like, suppose if Gearbox came out and they were publishing a game that wasn't being published by 2K, I might be able to justify in my mind that, well, it's just Randy Pitchford that I have a problem with, and he's a jerk, but his business practices have only really affected people that he's directly interacted with. Gearbox as a company still has put out decent products, with the exception of Duke Nukem Forever and Battleborn and pretty much any of their third-party games they've published. That they certainly aren't going in the right direction, but I might be able to justify if a Borderlands 4 came out and it wasn't a 2K product, then I might be able to justify not boycotting that. On the other hand, I wouldn't be surprised if there were a few people that boycotted Borderlands 3 because of Randy Pitchford and Gearbox, and not because of 2K. And it might be the exact opposite. If 2K came out with a Borderlands 4 that Gearbox didn't develop, people might buy that more. And certainly a lot of people are boycotting Borderlands 3 right now just because it's on the Epic Store. By the way, it is 33% off on sale right now, which is way too much of a discount for a major AAA game that came out only a few months ago. But yeah, a lot of people not playing that game or buying it because of the Epic Store only. I clearly don't have enough mana. So let's just save ourselves some frustration and concede. Like, I'm not gonna win. I'm not gonna win when he has 3 or more characters when I'm playing an aggro deck. Yeah, I don't think this is ready for prime time. I think it needs some more tweaks, but I'm not sure exactly what I'd want to tweak. And boy, is it quicker and easier to get a random game than it is to get a ranked game. They need to fix that. Let's see. They need to fix their queue system. They need to get more people playing ranked, or they need to just whatever. Like, I don't know what they're doing that's taking so much extra effort. So, what did he do? Paid 2 life to have that on the field. So for 1 mana, I can do this and kill what he paid for, and he doesn't even get his lifelink back. TechRaptor has an article here. Asmodee Entertainment is releasing game tie-in novels, which is weird. Asmodee is apparently trying hard to get some more sales, but Asmodee Entertainment, which I assume is Asmodee Digital also, is the developer known for converting board games into video games that are almost always kind of lazy and not well done. So yeah, I don't know what else to say there. It's just like, that's a weird direction. It'd be very strange if we started seeing that happen more often, where yeah, just toss the Planeswalker. That's the move. I wish Asmodee Digital did a better job. Like, that would be very nice. But they don't. This sucks. Alright, so clearly I have 2 expensive cards and I need more land. Yeah, the balance here is wrong. So I guess this is probably one of the biggest stories here from Gamasutra today. Valve issues a string of Steam bans after publishers caught abusing Steamworks. Valve has pulled around 1,000 games from Steam after publishers were caught abusing Steamworks. A Reddit user highlighted a purge after noticing a recent influx of banned titles on the Steam tracker. And after a fair bit of speculation, Valve told PC Gamer it had pulled a number of games that, after a handful of partners were caught abusing some Steamworks tools. Although no high-profile titles have been affected, some of those banned titles had been on the store front for a number of years and racked up a fair few user reviews, which the question about user reviews is always there. About how much of that is equals sales or equals anything of any value. The article continues. I'm basically going to read this whole article, which I very rarely do, particularly in Gamasutra's case. Valve didn't explain exactly how the partners have been misusing Steamworks, although game developer Alexandra Frock suggested one company, a Russian publisher, called Dagestan Technology had been releasing titles under different names. Some devs on social media, however, claim they've been caught in the crossfires after being wrongfully accused of abusing the system to sell bundles to consumers. Which, yeah, I guess that's one way shenanigans go on, is bundling games over and over again. The bundles with 100 games in it, and selling it for like $20. The next paragraph goes, quote, "We've detected that your accounts have been used to assure Steamworks tools for selling bundles to customers," reads an email posted by indie developer IDAL Games, IDAL Games on Twitter. "We're removing all associated games from sale and it says evoking, but I assume that's a typo, revoking your access to Steamworks backend. We are not interested in distributing any of your games on Steam in the future." And then Gamasutra says, "We've reached out to Valve for more information on the matter." So if I click on this link, link cannot be reached. I don't know if that is my internet connection or what. There you go. It takes it a while. There's some weirdness about how I program my router and whether it decides to give up early or wait and try a little bit longer with some of the connections. And then there's kind of an argument between networking people whether giving up early is the right move or waiting is the right move. But I would say waiting probably is a little bit the better move, because if your browser is showing you errors, that's a problem. So apparently there's this website here as a list of banned games. So let's see. Let's just scroll down here and we can see the names of some of these games. A lot of these I have not ever heard of and I haven't seen. They all do seem like they are pretty simplistic garbage games though. So Space Girls is the first one that even seems like it might be an adult game. That's where my skew and my slant on this would be, is how many of these games are banned because they're low effort garbage games and how many of these are adult games. And so far in scrolling through this whole thing, seems like they are all low effort garbage games, which I'm perfectly fine with those getting banned. I don't think there's anybody out there that really wants these on Steams. Here's a one called A Lot Like Love that might be an adult game, but it's probably a low effort garbage game, adult game. One of the visual novels, I think it's called Narcissia or Narcissus, I think is the name. A 10th anniversary anthology project. It's an old collection of visual novels that I think are pretty short. It's on sale during the summer, the sale that's going on right now. I want to call it the summer sale, but it really isn't. But yeah, it's probably not worth purchasing right now for me. I don't see how I'd ever really have time to do a visual novel when I now know I really only have 2 time slots in which I can cover games. Yeah, I went down this entire list and it was about 100 games if I was to guess. And of those 100 games, none of them look good. None of them particularly look like they are legitimate, like visual novel, adult game, or anything that would concern me at all. They all look like they really are just garbage. So I have to, I guess, remembering I am very much anti-censorship, but kind of pro-curating a storefront. So there's a contradiction there, definitely. Like, I don't really consider, and I don't think it's legitimate to consider, the Steam storefront that is a storefront designed around selling products to be a public forum in which speech is being shared and spoken. Where it's something like Twitter and Facebook and even YouTube is very much a public forum. While we may be slightly selling our videos as YouTubers with ads, it isn't the main focus of, I would say, even the majority of people on YouTube, considering how little money and how few people are making money on YouTube these days. Yeah. So, what's stupid here, as I'm scrolling down now the second page, I'm not going to go through all of these, is why did it take them so long to do what would have been the most basic of a search? Just to say, hey, let's look at all the people that are making bundles, and let's look at all the bundles that have more than, let's say, 6 games on it, and then let's get a list there. And then once we get that list, maybe you need to whittle down the list a little bit more, and you go, how many of these bundles that have more than 6 games on it are from a publisher or developer or entity that has multiple lists with more than 6 on it. And then at that point you probably have a very short list of abusers of the bundle system. And it also would have been probably easy and something they should do right now, certainly, is just put a hard limit in it and say, we no longer allow you to have more than 6 games in a bundle without prior approval. So you come to us and we'll look at it, and anybody else that has bundles right now will be grandfathered in, and pending further review. I mean, it doesn't particularly seem like they've given any indication that they've nipped this problem in the bud, as much as they've potentially just caught a few of the worst abusers but left the door wide open, which maybe that's the case and maybe it isn't. CheckRaptor has the same article here. More than 1,000 Steam game bans took place overnight. I don't know if it really invokes anybody. Like, it doesn't really encourage me to want to buy more games from Steam because they banned a bunch of games. But it probably helps their Steam sale. Although their Steam sale right now is not really highlighting any games except for the biggest games anyway, so that's not really going to change much. Let's see. Alright. But I can say I'm happy that it seemed like on the list there, this wasn't a huge purge of games that people were actually purchasing. it does kind of open the door about what is the direction Valve is going, but it seems like maybe, it almost seems like maybe there's somebody new in charge, slightly in charge, that are implementing a new policies, whereas in the past they've had these libertarian ideals thrust upon them as a company. This on top of VR Half-Life Alexa being announced. I mean, like the news I'm expecting to hear, or I suspect we might hear by the end of the year, or by the end of it next year, is that Gabe Newell is retiring and he's stepping away from being the person in charge, because you have to assume that he was at least a major voice in the way that Valve has been run in the past 5 to 10 years, and all of a sudden it's being run in a different way, and that seems to indicate some new leadership somewhere. Of course, the accusations against Valve is that pretty much everybody in charge that has vested stock doesn't really care about the company and doesn't really do anything, so who would be this new excited young blood that's inspiring people to actually do something? That would be the question. Who's the savior of Valve that's secretly forcing them to actually do things? Moving on, we have an article here from Cyan. Cyan Ventures, which I assume is a parent company or a subsidiary of Cyan, has acquired the Unwritten Adventures in the Ages of Mist and Beyond, which is a tabletop role-playing game. Okay, so it's a tabletop role-playing game around Mist. Interesting. And they acquired it from Inkworks. So I'm wondering, and this is just so small, the text is, it's a, yeah, in 2013 Cyan authorized one of the first third-party works in the Deny universe since Myst 4 Revelation, the tabletop role-playing game. They made a Kickstarter and then they acquired it. That's an interesting way to run a business, I suppose, is that you license out your product to some tabletop game developer, since you're not qualified to really make a tabletop game as a video game developer, and then they go and make a Kickstarter. If the Kickstarter fails, no sweat off your back. If it succeeds, great, and then you acquire the rights of the Kickstarted game after the developer has done all the work. So interesting way to make a profit, I suppose. I imagine we wouldn't see too many people pulling something like that off, though. I imagine very quickly, if we saw things like EA making, or let's say Bethesda makes a Skyrim, license out the Elder Scrolls universe for a tabletop game that gets kickstarted by a third-party game, then Bethesda acquires the company, or acquires the rights to the game a couple of years later, 7 years later or so. Yeah, that might work. Might work for quite a while. Might work for a decade or two before people catch on. And it's not like there's really much of a scam even going on. It's just convincing people to kickstart a game because a company is a small indie developer instead of a AAA game developer like Bethesda trying to get people to kickstart it. It would definitely be less successful if Bethesda tried to kickstart a tabletop game. people would laugh at them and say, you've got money, why don't you just develop the game and then we'll buy it after the fact. Now I still feel it's important to say I don't recommend anybody ever kickstart anything, but yeah, I could see supporting a smaller company that very possibly will run away with your money compared to supporting a larger company that would very possibly run away with your money. Speaking of Bethesda, we have an article here from Komatsu. The Elder Scrolls Blades for the Switch has been delayed to early 2020. I half suspect Elder Scrolls Blades might be cancelled before it comes out for the Switch, frankly, because it's kind of nothing. It's a cell phone game. It's on iOS and Androids, and nobody was excited by it when it came out. So that's, yeah, it's probably pretty good. It was supposed to come out this fall and it didn't. Let's see, come on. Resolve. Does he have enough mana to eat that? No, but he did have enough mana to... Interesting. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article here. Assassin's Creed The Rebel Collection is launching December 6th. Is this a collection of the pirate games, I think? Let's see. It includes 2 full releases, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag and Assassin's Creed Rogue, which serves as a bridge between 4 and Unity, which would be the game after that. This is skipping over Assassin's Creed 3, which nobody cared about. So, it's weird, but I have been an advocate for taking some of these long-running video game series and editing them down into remakes and making it more simplistic and simplified. But I don't feel like these collections really are doing too much of that. What they probably should do, and it probably would be too much work and not sell that well, is take the events of Assassin's Creed 1 through 2 through all of the Ezio games, which would be Brotherhood and I think Revelation. If you took all of those events and edited it out, a lot of the grinding and a lot of the stuff, and made one big game from that, you'd be fine. And then if you took the Assassin's Creed 3 and 4 and Unity and Syndicate and everything up until Origins and merged that into one large game, that would be good too. And then you put yourself in a good position where Origins and Odyssey and whatever the next game is could be a third bundle for a third chapter, and those games play almost rather different than the previous games anyways. But yeah, you almost certainly couldn't pull that off. It would be too much work. The same way I'm not going to win here, so I should just save myself some time and concede. Just exit out and exit out quick. I don't need to see him play his cards. Alright, what do we need to tweak here? I think this to draw 2 cards is probably not worth it. This is definitely not worth it. Let's see, this I don't think is worth it. At a 4 cost, I wish it was worth it, but I don't think it is. I'm going to get rid of one of these, and then I'm going to do 1, 2, and that will give me, see, I'm at 21 and I should be at like 24. 1, 2, 3. So I need to get rid of 3 more cards. 1, 2. And let's get rid of one of those. I kind of feel like the problem here is I just don't have the cards. I just don't have the cards that I need. If I could find a couple more low cost characters that got buffed every time you cast a spell, if I could do some other things, some low cost aggro spells. Anyways, let's look here. Gamatsu has the Famitsu sales for 11/18 through 11/24. So, Pokemon Sword and Shield, Ring Fit Adventures, Luigi's Mansion, so Nintendo Switch dominating. Shenmue 3 for the PS4 is in the 4th position, and frankly, it doesn't deserve to be in the 4th position for how they've treated their fans, who clearly are still rewarding them even though they were treated pretty badly. Below that is Death Stranding, limited edition included. Below that is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, so Star Wars does not beat 2 weird Japanese games and 3 Nintendo games. One of which is Ring Fit Adventures. I'm a little surprised Ring Fit Adventures is doing that well. Japanese people tend to think that they're overweight, even though in all actuality they aren't, by any realistic comparison to anyone else in the world who's healthy. 7th is Mario and Sonic at the Olympics, and then 8th is Super Mario Party, and 9th is Minecraft Switch Edition, and 10th is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which means that 7 out of the 10 games that are on the sales this week are Nintendo games. So, unsurprisingly, hardware sales. Switch is in the first place, followed by Switch Lite, followed by the PS4 and the PS4 Pro, with the new 2DS and the new 3DS in 5th and 6th place, followed by 61 units of the Xbox One S and 49 units of the Xbox One X, which actually is pretty good numbers considering how awful they've been in the past for Xboxes. And it does, yeah, I'm just gonna wait, does it at the very least show that perhaps the Xbox has a chance of getting a few last sales before Project Scarlet comes out. The Vita only had 23 sales in 9th position, whereas the Xbox had almost 110 sales Yep. And honestly, you're talking so few numbers that, and I'm fairly certain the reason why the numbers are so small is because Microsoft simply needs to own some of the video game stores. Like, they need to own a store in Tokyo, in a few of Tokyo's districts that are just pushing those every time. But frankly, they could be buying 100 units of their own, like every week, just to get the sales up a little bit more. Let's see. Yeah, if they had bought just 20 more units of the Xbox One S, they would have beaten the new 3DS, which only had 81. Now, the new 2DS, including the 2DS, sold 992, so that's not reasonable to do that. And I don't know how financially viable it would be to manipulate Famitsu's sales numbers that way, but it probably is more viable than you would realize. Let's do this. Alright. Do this. And next. And I'll attack. Next. Just go ahead and auto pass. Let's see. Resolve. Creating all kinds of food tokens. Pass. Yeah. Oh, he's creating tons of food tokens. No blocks. Let it attack. Here we go.
Let's do this. There's no problem fire can't solve.
Apparently can't cast that spell. Next attack. Yeah, I pretty much lost. Next we have a game on Steam here called Legend of the Nine Swords Side Story. Clearly an RPG Maker game, or just a low effort RPG, nothing visually interesting here. It's coming soon, apparently. English only. Yep, that doesn't need to be on the follow list. So a sale is going on right now, so in theory I could be focusing in or trying to do a Steam follow list cleanup, but don't really have a lot of desire or need to do that. I think we can wait until February or so. Yeah, some of these pages just don't want to reload. Games Radar has an article here, not a article site I usually look at. Go and make the best game that you can. How Microsoft is helping to evolve Wasteland 3. 2 days ago, Microsoft hasn't changed what the game we are making is at all, says In Exile, which, yeah, I don't think it is quite the point where Microsoft would start interfering and sending notes to game developers. They would only start to do that if they heavily integrated these the companies that they've acquired into Microsoft, and then there was a bunch of interference that way. In a funny way, I guess Microsoft's Xbox division acquiring these other companies is an admission that they really aren't in a position where it would make sense to, I don't know how to even really say it. Microsoft itself has been so focused on being the Windows company or being the server-side company, so Microsoft's game studios failing as an internal company, and then, or sort of failing, I guess is the best way to put that, is probably a good indication that their goal going forward is going to be very much to try and, wow, I actually had a victory there. I thought I was definitely going to lose. Yeah, I think their goal is to try to just fund companies that aren't Microsoft to make games. And what will happen is eventually they'll shutter or just shut down companies if they decide they're no longer pleased with those companies. Which, honestly, in the video game world, might be the way to do things. Like, maybe we don't need Walmarts and McDonald's to exist for decades upon decades. Maybe it is better that you just have startup companies like Tesla come in and do something different than, say, all the American car companies that have just kind of stayed in one place and not succeeded. So maybe it is better that talent just gets broken up and companies get shut down and then new companies get founded under new leadership and new ideas. It's kind of hard to know. It's probably impossible to know because you just don't have the ability to see what would have happened in the other timeline, where certain companies wouldn't have gone out of business. Like, if LucasArts was still in business right now, would there be more LucasArts games? Not really. If Blizzard had never been merged with Activision, would there have been better Blizzard games? Maybe a little bit, but probably not, because by the time a company is acquired, it's usually past its heyday anyways. So I wouldn't expect any of the Microsoft acquisitions of their companies to actually make any good games. I don't think Double Fine is going to make much of anything after they're finished with the one game that everybody wants them to make. Anyways, moving on. OpenCritic has an article here. Last year, The Nightmare is relaunching on Steam following the Discord store shutdown, which I forgot the Discord store existed, and I don't know if I even knew that it was shut down. So, yeah, last year, here's a trailer, Nightmare, and is this gonna play? Probably not. What kind of game is this? See, last year The Nightmare joined similar games such as Friday the 13th, The Game, and Dead by Daylight, and the recent string of horror games that pit several vulnerable players against one overpowered killer. Yeah, unfortunately it seems like it's not a game that you can play single player. Otherwise it looks like there might be some visuals and some concepts here that might have worked as a single player experience. Although, if the monster changes each season, or whatever they were calling it, then it would be a hard stretch to explain how a single horror story would have a different antagonist after multiple chapters. Although, you know, Resident Evil does that kind of well, where the bosses change. Although you tend not to be constantly chased by the bosses, you tend to be chased by the same zombies in Resident Evil. TechRaptor has an article here. Games Planet Christmas deals are week 1 are now live, so I don't shop at Games Planet and can't speak to their quality or whether they even give you Steam codes. But yeah, they're an affiliate of TechRaptor. And I figure it's probably worth mentioning the sales. Let's see if we can wrap up here. Epic Game Store has this Borderlands 3 Psycho bundle in Fortnite. Borderlands 3 includes a Fortnite Psycho bundle pack for free until December 31st. The bundle contains the Psycho Bandit outfit, Claptrap pet, and Pet Psycho Buzz axes. Buy any version of Borderlands 3 below and log into Fortnite to get the bundle. So yeah, seems like they are trying really hard in a few different ways to specifically sell Borderlands 3 on the Epic Store. Valve Software retweeted. So, like, Valve made, like, there was a Steam support Twitter, I think, anyways. But Valve themselves now has 14 tweets. Let's see. They're just kind of promoting their autumn sale and some Dota stuff. And the Dota stuff is mostly, I guess, the most surprising thing there, and that's not super surprising. They haven't gotten annoying by any means or repetitive, so you could pretty easily follow them on Twitter and not have to mute them if you want to. Otherwise, you'll almost certainly hear any news that is of any importance to you from Valve through other sources. TechRaptor has an article here. Pokemon Global Link shuts down in early 2020. I guess Global Link is the way Pokemon games connected over the internet before. A series of services that extended the online functionality of Pokemon between Generation 5 Black and White to Generation 7 Sun and Moon. Allows people to trade Pokemon over the internet, similar to the earlier global terminal in Generation 4. So yeah, that's just that they're shutting down more support and peeving off, I guess, more Pokemon players. But I don't think they care, and I don't think it's going to irritate enough people for people to actually implement a real boycott on Pokemon. Some of these back-end services, though, would have been super easy to maintain. Or you certainly need to program a way around back-end services, so when you remove them, that there is still a way to do everything, even if it only locally. TechRaptor has an article here. Foil Nazi plans in Nine Witches Family Disruption. This looks like it's a pixel graphics game that's coming soon. And yeah, I don't have enough bandwidth right now to deal with coming soon games. Yeah, it looks like it's just a pixel adventure game. I'm wearing out my voice. Yep. This feels like this very well may just be a troll game too. Check Raptor has an article here. Doctor Who Infinity is getting 3 more episodes. That's a match 3 game. Doctor Who, like kind of one of the worst of a series of bad Doctor Who games. And the problem in particular with this Doctor Who game is it's covering Doctor Who from a couple seasons ago, and that really doesn't matter anymore. You probably should make a Doctor Who game where either the Doctor is a really old Doctor character that's beloved, or you just don't see his face ever anyways. I'm sorry, man, I'm just weighing out my voice. And we've gone an hour, so I'm gonna just try to go through all the news really quickly and make this the last game, because I'm not going to be able to talk anymore. I guess aggro has kind of worked and it kind of hasn't. It's done alright. I'm going to try and eat a lozenge and see how that works, but it's probably not going to work at all. That's a new card. I haven't seen that one. Ghost Story Games, which used to be known as Irrational Games, the maker of BioShock, is trying to sell some of its BioShock stuff for up to 50% off. Some of its swag. They really don't deserve any real credit. I mean, when you change your company's name to get away from being remembered and associated with Irrational Games and the fact that you don't want to make another BioShock, then you really don't have a credit to try and sell your business, which, by the way, you haven't come out with any new games since BioShock either. I think they worked on Infinite in some part, if not most of it. They desperately need to come out with a new product. Something different. And I suppose it's better described as the main guy, who is the main guy in charge of creating BioShock 1, took a selection of people and decided to have them. I can't block that guy, can I? Decided to make a new company and is trying to pretend like that new company is the company that was in charge, when very arguably he wasn't. Sorry if you can hear me chewing this cough drop. I'll mention that Wikipedia has a list of 2019 in video gaming, and that's what I looked at to make a selection as far as the Steam Game Awards. Steam Awards, but none of those very few of the games that are on that list, and those are the big games, are particularly great or noteworthy. Like, 2019 really hasn't been a good year for games. Open Critic has an article here. Google Stadia team addresses one problem as another emerges. I'm not even going to bother to read this, but people are feeling ripped off. They feel lied to, whether that's justified or not, in your opinion. They feel like the games that were described as running in 4K, and they're not really running in 4K, and Google is just kind of passing the buck and saying, well, we give them the opportunity to use as much of the CPU as they want. I don't know if that actually means what people think it means, or if it means that Google is selling per like teraflop or per CPU time to the game people who are streaming on the Stadia. It might be that a lot of the games are running slow for the simple fact that people aren't willing or capable of paying the higher fees for better speed and better processors. But they certainly came out advertising them to be 4K 60 frames per second, and that's not what anybody feels like they're getting. I don't think I'm gonna win here. TechCraft has an article here. Roguelike meets cards gaming in Little Dungeon Stories, which just sounds like another game that's not out yet. A lot of hype games coming out from TechRaptor considering the time. Sumatsu has an article here. Experience launches Shibito Magiri crowdfunding campaign. Third entry into the Spirit Hunter series. So it's a creepy horror game. I don't know if this is a Japanese or Korean title. I would assume it's a Japanese, but it looks kind of Korean too. I mean, I could buy it, certainly if it was Korean. If somebody told me it was Korean. Alright. I think I've lost. I could have won though, had I had the one card that did 6 damage. Twitch is still having problems off and on. I'm not going to bother to mention it, but yeah, Twitch support having login errors. So here is the new cards that I think are coming out called the Secret Lair. And let's see. The Secret Lair drops in 2019 will come with the contents below, as well as a code for the unique card sleeves as on Magic the Gathering Arena, and a unique code for Magic the Gathering Online for non-foil digital versions of that drop. The drops with tokens have a little something extra, which will be listed below. So I don't know if these secret layers are going to be good things if you were playing paper Magic to buy, but if somebody does buy them and they happen to get some codes, or if it turns out these codes are multi-reusable, let me know on Twitter, and that way I can maybe get some more sleeves and swag up my account. Or if you play paper Magic and you don't play Arena, I'd certainly appreciate that. Let's see. We probably have some games that were left over from Monday maybe. And we'll have to leave those over for Friday too. Tech Raptor has an article here, Magic Champions Core Set Review. This is some kind of card game for Marvel Champions, not Magic Champions. I've got too much Magic on my mind, clearly. It would be weird if the second dinner game that's in development, that's a Marvel card game, is based on this. Marvel Champions. It wouldn't be a big problem, I guess, for me. Marvel Champions is a living card game, though it comes in fixed packs. It would be nice, frankly, if there was a digital version of a living card game more than a collectible card game. And there haven't really been any trading card games digitally, because that would be a nightmare trying to actually trade online. If anybody was going to do a trading card game, it would have been Magic. So yeah, I don't know if the second dinner game that's in development is going to be a brand new game, or if it's going to be based on something like Marvel Champions, or perhaps some other game that I'm unaware of. Gamasutra has an article here. Air Console raises $3 million to expand its library and reach. This is a browser-based game service I've never heard of. So they must not have too many games or too much success so far. Let's see. Tech Raptor has a opinion piece here. Borderlands 3 takedown on Malawan Black Site raid overview. So it's a review on either a DLC part or just a single large mission. He didn't bother to put any review numbers, but this last paragraph seems to be not too time consuming, very rewarding, easily accessible regardless of your online popularity. So yeah, it sounds like it's a Crawmax style final mission designed to be particularly difficult and require, or at least heavily suggest, that you should have have 4 players playing the game. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here. Cygames and Citadel announced a pinball action game called World Flipper for smartphones in Japan. Okay. I could see this coming to the West, being a pinball game, and while it does have anime characters, they seem to be fairly family friendly. Yeah, I don't see a reason why this couldn't get translated and come over. And it's not like there's a ton of pinball games that have succeeded on cell phones, and having kind of an adventure Galaga Brickbreaker style combination. You're merging 3 concepts into one there, where you're fighting monsters and one assumes getting some RPG upgrades and having to hit specific people to do damage, but it probably doesn't get very complicated beyond that. Gamatsu has an article here. M2 developed shoot 'em up / visual novel Feveron Gakuin resurfaces as Gakuin, confirmed for the PS4. So it's a shoot 'em up visual novel, kind of like Galgun, it seems. Yeah, that seems like that's what it is. It'll be interesting to see if there's any censorship here, considering there is a bloomer mode, basically a pantsu mode under a different name, to show underwear. And we've got like 1, maybe 2 more articles. Let's see. We already talked about this article. Daymare 1998 gets free DLC that's totally not hunk. Which Daymare 1998 is another Dead by Daylight game. There's far too many of them. What's funny, particularly on that, is it's not even like there's been any successful asynchronous horror game out there. Like Friday the 13th was probably the most successful in my mind, and it still wasn't really successful. So why so many people were chasing that dragon, I have no idea. People thought it was good, and they probably felt it was good in the 5 minutes they played it at some convention somewhere, but in reality it just didn't sell. TechRaptor has an article here. You can get Rayman Legends free on the Epic Games Store next week. This was the 21st, so that's probably the next few days as the next free Epic Games Store game, which is fair enough, I suppose. And that brings me to the Humble Bundle store, and as this is the day before American Thanksgiving, I don't suspect there will be any new bundles anytime soon, although one of the bundles does end in 52 minutes, so it's possible that a new bundle would appear. But I would think it would be not in 52 minutes, but in like either tomorrow or Black Friday or Cyber Monday would be the days that the sale would come out. If they were trying to get ahead of any of those times, they would have had a sale, say, last Friday or this Monday. So then that just brings me to my Twitter feed, which, with none of the images loading, is incredibly difficult to scroll down through because, like, I don't know if a game that I'm seeing the name of is a terrible game. That game Pathologic 2 is now available for pre-order on the Xbox One. That was the game that I saw a review for Pathologic 1, and it was just a game that seemed to delight in frustrating its players. And so I removed both Pathologic 1 and Pathologic 2 from my wish list because it just didn't look like a game I'd want to put up with. Let's see, Gamatsu has an article here from 29 minutes ago. A Kojima Productions veteran, Kenichiro Imazumi, has departed the company, which I'm not super surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people leave Kojima Productions just after that first game because they weren't happy with the experience, or they were only sticking around to be helpful. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, didn't even know they were making an Ultra Deluxe version of the Stanley Parable. It's been delayed to 2020. Interesting. Good Old Games re-releases John Woo's Stranglehold on PC. There are some Good Old Games that have been re-releases of old games that I was hoping would come to Steam that really haven't so far. Oh yeah, here's a reminder to go to smile.amazon.com when buying anything on amazon.com, so you donate to your selected charity, whether you want to donate to, say, Child's Play or Electronic Freedom Foundation or any charity of your choice. Those are a couple off the top of my head. What's funny here is I'm seeing a combination of tweets that are old and new, and I don't know if that's another bandwidth issue or if I'm just seeing retweets. Let's see. Fallout 76 player versus player rules are being exploited with radiation. Who cares? You'd be a fool to still be playing Fallout 76, or frankly, you've been a fool to play it at all. see. Any other bits of news I want to cover before we wrap up this stream? I really wish I could convince my voice to last a little bit longer, but talking straight for 3 hours seems to be about all it can do, and it seems like it's getting worse, not better, over time. Let's see. Apparently there's a game called Monopoly Longest Game Ever, which has to be a joke version of Monopoly. Let's see. It's not a video game though, it's just a tabletop game. And yeah, if anybody ever asks you, do you want to play Monopoly, you better really love Monopoly. Hey, here's a game on Steam that came out called Hentai Nazi, which clearly is just a low effort game trying to sell on sex. See, Star Citizen's Theater of War is a new 20 versus 20 battleground game. I don't think we need new Star Citizens games because I think they're still trying to finish the original Star Citizens game. See, 2K donates $500,000 to Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Good for them. They have the money, and clearly they're doing it for a tax write-off. But at the very least, they weren't trying to convince other people to donate in their name so that they could get a free tax write-off. But that usually is an indication also that they have so much money that they have to actually donate their own. Atari Vault adds 50 games in DLC. Interesting. I'd have to look up what Atari Vault is. And we should be hitting the point where we started. There's about 10 or 20 games that are on Steam that I'm not mentioning. We'll just talk about on Friday. Tickrafter has the new December 2019 Twitch Prime games coming out. So yeah, if you have Twitch Prime. Finally did get charged for Twitch Prime, $160 a year. Now, I did not realize it was that expensive. I thought I was getting some kind of kickback for no rush shipping, but apparently not so much. And yeah, I don't really feel like I'm in a situation where I am not benefiting from Twitch Prime, because I do sadly order a lot from Amazon Prime, and on rare occasion watch some of their movies and don't do anything else with any of their other services. But that is a little too expensive, and I know they just raised the price this year, so it will be a consideration, I guess, next year whether it's worth keeping. Alright, well, that's going to be it for the stream. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry for the bandwidth issues. Hopefully by Friday my backup will be fully finished, and then there will be no more network problems, or considerably less network problems. That's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. There's a sale going on right now. Great time to do that. Or you can gift me a gift card if you don't want to make a decision. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.